mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. Hey, what's up, world? Welcome to another edition of I Mix What I Like Live. Again, I'm Jared Ball, happy to be your host. Once again, please do make sure you're all signed up at blackpowermedia.org and following at Black Power Media, the number one, or Black Power Media I1 on Twitter. But if you're all signed up at blackpowermedia.org, that's a perfect way to start, and then you can catch everything else from there. So please do make sure you've done that if you haven't already. Please do consider liking, sharing, and subscribing, and inviting others to join both the live and the of course, to check this out on the replay. And then be sure, and I'll come back and repeat this, but we want to make sure that you stick around after this for those who will be here live. Please do stick around after, because right afterwards we're going to have a special. We have a lot actually happening on the channel today. We've been some of you have been enjoying the 24/7 replay we've been running, so we appreciate that. But we have actually a lot coming up today, starting with not only my next guest here in just a minute, but we are going to have a very special breaking news edition of Takoma Nation coming up live right after this at 1 o'clock Eastern time, because they're going to start some coverage for us on the Syrian airstrike and the $15 minimum wage ruling that is, well, all to be discussed at 1 o'clock Eastern right here with Takoma Nation in a special live edition with them. Then they're going to be back at 5 o'clock Eastern time for a live, another special live at their more or less regular time, rather, with Cam Howard of Cobra to talk about the latest with the struggle over reparations and the recent hearings on HR 40. And I don't know, was that also about SB 1083? Anyway, it's basically the same thing, but at least HR 40 with Cam Howard and all things reparations. And then at 7 p.m. Eastern, the premiere of episode 4 of The Last Dope Intellectual with Dr. Sharice Burden-Stelly. And it has only gotten better. I'll just say that. So you definitely don't want to miss that live at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time here, all at the Black Power Media channel all day. So we have a lot coming up. So definitely stick around. Now, in the immediate right now is one of my favorite human beings in the world for a long, long time. And someone who I am very happy is finally willing to join me here on camera and in a live session. She's one of the most brilliant activists, artists, thinkers I've known for such a long time. But like so many of the best among us, they don't all want any form of spotlight, to the extent that this is a spotlight. And so I understand that, respect that. But sometimes, admittedly, personally, it is frustrating because they are incredible people. And, you want, anyway. So, but she has finally agreed to do this. And I'm talking about my dear sister and comrade, Soul Rebel, who is, among many, 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 many things, a Jamaican abroad, finding the courage to indulge in a creative's life and to participate in critical discussions about building sustainable communities. She hosts the amazing Roots Rock Reggae on Takoma Radio and is a marketing technologist by trade. And she's going to talk with us at least a little bit today about big data and biometrics. Soul Rebel, it is so good to see you. Welcome to the program. Thank you very much for joining me and us, sister, comrade. I love you. Thank you very much. Good to see you.
I love you too, and thank you for inviting me. And I'm so proud of you for doing this work and keeping it real, educating the people, educating me. Every time I tune in, I learn a lot of good stuff. So thank you. I don't even know if I'm worthy.
Yeah, whatever.
of being on the show, but I am happy to get some thoughts out there or some things that folks should actually think about. So thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, well, all right, big whatever to that. And then anyway, it all will be made evident shortly. But so listen, again, you are one of the those who, honestly, one of the problems that I have with this issue is that I, at least in my limited experience, find it difficult to find people who have both an awareness of some of this stuff around data and technology, but also the particular political concerns and perspective of African people and people in struggle just in general.
Yeah.
So I admit some of that is my own ignorance because I know they're out there. But I don't come across them or their work enough. So I'm very happy to be able to talk with you about this. So if I'll just start with the big, broad, vague question of, when you're talking about big data and biometrics, first of all, if you just lay out what it is that it is we're talking about here, and then why this is in particular maybe importance for those in the African community and or oppressed communities in general.
Well, big data is, pretty much out the gates. It's just the grab of a lot of data and information about all of us. So that is out the gate. What we're faced with now is the application of and the integration of processes into our everyday lives. So, for example, the thing that I would love for us to take a look at is these biometric IDs, which are rolling out all over the place, really quietly, sometimes loud, and that a lot of people feel like they don't have any time to discuss, especially in the African world, or even understand what are the implications of these IDs. In Jamaica, we have NIDS, NIDS. In Kenya, in Tanzania, in so much of the African world, these IDs are showing up. They're usually codified in law, and there is no discussion about them. It seems as if the laws are written in the same place because they all require the same things. They require not just fingerprints. Fingerprints is so old school. They require face prints. They require voice prints. They require your DNA. It require iris scans, palm prints. They're capturing.
And this is all what you mean when you're talking about biometrics, by the way. This is
all biometrics. Biometrics are just biological information about you. And that has been pumped into, that is not the base of an ID. And the drive is to create perhaps a singular database where every person on the planet is cataloged and are all in that database. And this affects how you move around the world, how you access benefits like Social Security, anything, everything that you do, whether you had an accident with your car, wherever you're walking. This is also capturing information about your gait. How do you walk? You're walking in a public space. There's a camera capturing you. It doesn't have to get a close up, but just by the way you walk, they can tell, oh yeah, that is, that is Jared walking there in China. And oh, there he goes in Kenya.
Hey, but did you know, but years ago, I was reading about something involving intelligence or COINTELPRO, and that was actually something in the documents that they used to measure, that was on the roster of things that used to catch people they were looking for or to monitor people. And one of the tactics I read that was encouraged in response to that was that people said to do things like put a pebble in your shoe.
Yeah.
That to force you to walk, to adjust the way you walk, to avoid that. But for a long time they've been looking at stuff like that. So now they're just enhancing their capability of doing it. So anyway, sorry, but go ahead.
Yeah. That is absolutely right. The capabilities are here, and it actually is helping to solve some crime. I mean, with the journalist Khashoggi, who was recently murdered. They were able to tell that the guy who was pretending to be him by walking out of that embassy was not him by the way that he walked. It also helps that by the fact that although he was wearing Khashoggi's clothes, the pants were a little bit too short.
Right.
But yeah, that technology is here. But aside from that technology being here, the next step is to get us all to carry around these real IDs, these NIDS IDs, or whatever they want to call them. That is our passports to everything and anything. I think it's dangerous. They always frame it also from a sense of, crime and crime deterrent and all this kind of stuff, and that it
And
will
convenience.
and open up economic opportunities to folks and stuff like that. But nothing, there's no proof about that. No study has shown that's the thing. I think what it is, it's basically criminalizing a lot of people. Because I mean, who do you fingerprint and collect DNA and face print and all this stuff for before you can access anything? That's a form of, that's what you do to people who have been convicted of a crime or perhaps accused of a crime. So basically, we're all taking those steps as if we're a criminal just to get an ID. Places like Jamaica and I think Kenya, they faced a lot of opposition. The Jamaican law was actually found to be unconstitutional by the Jamaican courts, because one of the things that they try to write into these laws is that it is mandatory that you provide all of this information. Yes, and it's the same template. Everywhere you see these cards rolling out, they try to use the same template. If you don't have a strong civic society, the law go into effect and you are mandated to provide your DNA and all of this stuff to the government. Which then passes off the storage of the data to a private company, most likely. Sometimes they have what they call private public partnerships, but it's usually a private company. Most governments don't have the wherewithal to store this data. I mean, in Jamaica, we still suffer from power cuts. We can't even keep the power on 24/7 for everybody, much less just store this data and to have it retrieved in a timely manner. So it's external. The backbone of it is external. So, one of the things we're finding in some places, Tanzania and Kenya, for example, is that it's exclusionary. It excludes some people from accessing, public services and identify people by ethnicity and sexual orientation, for example. And it's a very convenient way to marginalize, a whole bunch of people. This.
Wait, how does that? Wait! I think I missed something. How does someone's sexual orientation get measured through
these IDs? Because those are some of the information that they try to capture about you. They can ask you anything to provide your what's your religion. That was being asked in Jamaica. What church do you attend if you attend a church? What mosque if you're a Muslim? Who do you live with? Do you own any property? With whom? They try to capture the births and deaths in your family, your driving history.
And this is all supposed to be willingly given over.
Yeah, this is the way that they propose all of these laws is that it's mandatory that you provide it. They've fought it.
So not even willingly, it's you have to give over all of these details about yourself.
Yeah, all of these details. What they've done in Jamaica is it's unconstitutional to require this information, for the government to require this information. So the government removed that. But then what they're going to do, what's the next step we're seeing unfolding is that, okay, it's not the law that you must provide it to get the ID, but in order to do certain processes, open a bank account, that you need to provide. They've sort of moved the shift to a more private space. So if the government can't get it from you, then the private sector should be able to ask you for it under the name of security. So that one way or another, they're going to try to get this information from you. And in places like Kenya, it's really caused a big problem. There's a group of Nubian folks that are really organized around this effort to fight it in the courts. They have had some victories so far, because what they're doing is to use the information collected to say, oh, you're Nubian, you don't belong in Kenya, you need to leave. And they deny them the ID, which denied them a lot of the goods and services that they actually helped to produce. So,
and where are they supposed to be, by the way?
Right. Well, that is interesting.
Like where does Kenya say they're supposed to be? I mean,
I'm not sure where they say they're supposed to be.
Because I'm not clear. There is no more Nubia, as I'm aware, in today's geopolitical arrangement. So
right.
What? That's deep, man.
It's very interesting. And this is just there. I mean, there are other countries, and unfortunately, with colonialism has drawn all these fictitious borders. And they're being tested by these IDs, countries that want certain people out. It's not in Burma, for example, but that their situation that unfolded there is an example of people who've been living somewhere for tens of years, 50 years or more, and are being asked to move to another country, maybe the country of their origin, perhaps not, perhaps have some sort of spiritual affiliation. But these ID cards are showing up in so many different places and are sparking a lot of discontent as well as discussions.
Wow. Okay.
So what the thing about this is that that I find interesting too is that there aren't any really African technology companies that are involved in the storage of the data, securing the data. It eventually there is a breach. For example, Jamaica has been collecting, requiring that folks who want to visit Jamaica now during this COVID phase must register on a website. And we find that they should collect this data about so many things: where you live, what's your house like, how many rooms do you have, your passport information and date of birth, and some health history and stuff like that. But recently, we found that the data which they said they were collecting and would destroy after a certain time was being kept. They had over perhaps maybe almost 500,000 records of folks in a cloud that was exposed somewhere. So all of the people who traveled to Jamaica in the past year, their information is just out there for other people to access, steal, to do whatever they want to do with it. So that is just one example of these small countries gathering up this data and not being able to keep it safe, not being able to keep it secure, and losing it. With a next step law like NIDS, which is the proposed law in Jamaica, which would collect all this biometric stuff, the people are discussing whether or not they're able to keep this information safe. They couldn't keep the COVID information safe. How are they going to keep my DNA information safe? And the thing about DNA and stuff like that is that you can't just switch it up like you would a password or something like that. And if that information is compromised, it can be used in so many ways. I'll give you one example that this researcher wrote about. I'll try to remember her name in just a second. She wrote an article, she was doing some research and found that in Hong Kong, the government decided to do some sort of a public education campaign about not littering. And so they took these cigarette butts and gum wrapper and pulled DNA information from those things and use it to create images of the folks who actually, pictures of the folks who actually threw the butts, littered with those things, and put them on a big billboard. So there are people walking in their neighborhood and see their faces on these billboards. So that's just to show you what DNA information can do. It can recreate an actual image and be really close to what you look like that you have.
But Soul Rebel, don't we want to stop littering?
No. Well, we might want to stop littering, but there's so many ways to do that. Do we need to go that far? That's one. And secondly, if they can do that with just a gum wrapper, if you voluntarily or mandated to provide this information, who else can create an image of you doing something that you didn't do, including your gait? Like they have how you walk, how you talk. You could be showing up, saying things and doing things that you never did. And there's no way for you to clear that information, and you gave that information to a private company or the government. Companies like Claire, which is now set up in all these airports, collecting people's information so that they could get ahead in a line. Who's behind that company? There's a lot of stuff for people to look into. And I think folks in the African world, we can't even keep our lights on 24/7. So there's a lot for us to consider before we join these agreements. Unfortunately, some folks are forced to join these agreements. We find that, I think it's Nigeria, that have some agreement with the US government to provide HIV/AIDS support. And they're not able to access those funds if they don't have this kind of ID rollout going on. So yeah, it's tough.
That is, I'm not gonna lie. I can't front. That was spooky. Just
Yeah,
thinking of what you were just saying is spooky. That any of us could just show up somewhere on a screen and be doing things and be like, "That wasn't me," and not one person will believe us.
no, yeah.
Um, but it just reminds me. So before we went on, I was telling you I was looking at this article from Foreign Policy at the end of last year, and it reminds me of what you were just talking about here. Um, and so I wanted to see if I could get you just to respond to it at all. But it says here that it's talking about big tech in Africa, and it says here that Africa is ground zero for data colonialism.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a minute. Yeah. No, here it is. This is where I wanted to start. Well, it's talking about artificial intelligence, but I think the details are interesting, but I think for our conversation, not really the most important part. Data colonialism is driven by the control of data as a proxy for the control of people. That's the line I was looking for. And it's quickly becoming the reality faced by many emerging economies today. So even as you were just talking about this relationship between the US government and Nigeria.
Mm-hmm. And
so again,
that was actually Kenya, by the way.
I'm sorry, Kenya. Sorry, Kenya. Data colonialism is driven by the control of data as a proxy for the control of people and is quickly becoming the reality faced by many emerging economies today. Far from decolonized, these countries are subject to the whims of big tech's unfettered rise. Vulnerable people's data is used to enhance companies' innovations, entrench their economic and political, and in effect, occupy the daily lives of billions of people. Data extraction, monopolization, and monetization are data colonialism's core tenets. So that that alone to me is pretty chilling. Ooh, whoops. Sorry about that. That alone is pretty chilling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In conjunction with what you were just describing, it's even worse. So anyway.
Yeah, it is true, and you have to think about what is this data being used for, aside from collecting it and, leaving people vulnerable and unsure about what is happening to them. We find that this data grab, and especially going down to these IDs that are now also requiring DNA information, we find that a lot of these companies are holding copyrights over people's DNAs. And any kind of scientific findings or information, drugs or anything that can come from, having people's DNA and doing, so that's an issue that I think the common person in the African world, in these countries, don't get to even have a say in, access to even studies that were conducted based on their information. They don't get to benefit from that. They get to use it against them. They get to use information about your income and your ability to carry debt, and use that information to decide how to deal with your country, what kind of loans you can access, what rates the country can access those loans, and what pressure it would put on the country. It goes into projecting so much, sometimes for good, but often for control. And that is colonialism. It doesn't change. It's about controlling. It's about accessing what people have and taking it. It's about getting people to work for slave wages. It's, modern version is capitalism. And we all know, the problem with that system. So big data, data is data, but what we're talking about is how is data being used? And how is it that, and the pressure that's been put on people to provide data that violate their privacy, which is still very important, which data that can be used to manipulate them politically, decide what messaging works to control those people. We look at what's happening in social media right now. I mean, it's great that some people might think it's great that, they could silence someone like Donald Trump and some of his supporters by turning off the microphone on Twitter. But what about other people that are fighting for their rights and are using, those platforms to organize and stuff like that? This is really showing
So I'm sorry to interrupt, but did you even see the story with I just saw it. I think it broke yesterday or the other day with not just the most oppressed, even among white progressive outlets with the gray zone. They broke a story about I think it was intelligence agencies basically using major outlets like Reuters and the BBC to spread all kinds of false narratives and stories with intention. And all this was documented and revealed. And then Twitter started, apparently for Max Blumenthal, they created a whole new category where when you clicked on the thing, it said something like, did you know that these materials might have been revealed or through leaks or hacking rather? And then like if you try to retweet his or Aaron Mate's story, it said something like, are you sure?
Yeah.
An enhanced version of what we've already started to see. Are you sure that you've read this and that you don't want to double check it? So anyway, so to your point, it's already moving over, and then obviously to anyone overtly known to be wanting some sort of more radical change, it can't go well.
Right.
Anyway, sorry. Go ahead. Please continue. Sorry about that.
I mean, yeah, it really is. It's really hard to. It's not hard to keep up with it. It's just so overwhelming, what technology can do. And it's really concerning that the voice of the democracy, of the common people, they're not factored in. And that so much of this stuff is being left up to these private companies or these publicly traded companies, and we just don't have enough say. People are being manipulated through these technologies. And people. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Go ahead. You can go ahead.
No, I just saw this question, and I wanted to make sure it got asked. So is it true that African hair obscures facial recognition software? Because I've seen the story where a couple of stories actually where facial recognition software has not been able to properly identify Black featured faces.
Yes.
And that's been used to falsely, of course, accuse Black people and falsely arrest and imprison Black people. But if there is a positive way of flipping that, the idea then it could be then that it would be hard to, or maybe more easy for an African featured person to mask, pun intended, their face in the eyes of digital technology. But anyway, is there any thing you can add to the or
Yeah, well, that is true, that we've found that all these recognition software, so there's two sides to it. There's authentication or validation, and then there is surveillance. So we're finding that African people with African features, it's difficult to validate them using these kinds of technology. But with these ID programs that we're rolling out all over the place, all over the African continent, there are attempts here as well for real ID and stuff like that. They are capturing a lot more people of color, African people, in these databases. So they're rapidly improving that. I mean, when they first started out this stuff, they weren't thinking about us in terms of validation, just for surveillance. They'll capture a face because you're a potential criminal. And there's so many databases out there that law enforcement use that project criminality in communities of color and stuff like that. So that's how the approach for people of color, with those databases, that's what they were thinking about law and order and all this kind of stuff. But when it comes on to validation, if you want to access your bank account or stuff like that, they realize like, we don't have any positive output for people of color, but they're working on it. Personally, I think, leave me out of it. But
so you're happy going the extra step if I have to put in my passcode as opposed to my face opening up my phone, you're okay with that? That's fine for you. You're good with that. Leave me out.
Passcode. I never opt to use my voice or any of that stuff. Whenever you call the banks now to check on your account, there's like, you know what? If you take 10 seconds and just add your voice, you just need it to access your services. I was like, no, I'll wait.
Mm.
So they're they made it so smooth. They made it smoother in this country. In countries outside of the United States, it's more crude. It's more the law and it's mandatory. That's what they're pushing for. But here, they approach that data capture as if you're gonna, you can cut the line. You don't have to stand in line with these folks. You can just walk through a TSA if you just provide your information to clear. While in Jamaica or someplace like that, you're mandated to do it. So here it makes you feel like you're getting a little cookie if you do it. You're getting convenience if you do it. But where does that information reside? What is it being used for? So it's I just want to encourage your audience to think about these things, and you can provide all your data to a private company just so you cut the TSA line. But aren't you sitting in the same flight as everybody else? You're not leaving any sooner than I am if I'm on the same flight. It's the same plane. So you got to think about what you're doing.
Hey, and for those of us who are often sized out of comfortable seating anyway and don't ever get in first class, I'm never in a hurry to get on that damn thing anyway. So I'm happily be among the last people to get on there, to sit in there the shortest period of time. So you know what I mean. That's another good point. But that said, I mean I'm guilty on at least to some extent of falling into the ease of some of this technology, and it's even worse given that I think I know and focus on some of these issues maybe more than the average person, and yet I still get swept up in it. So even in my own classes, I mean, we talk about this all the time. Like I'm saying, it's that line from Robin Williams in Good Will Hunting where he's saying, I teach it. I didn't say I could do it.
That's true.
I can't always overcome all of the propaganda and slickness of this system, even as I teach it and study it. I mean, that's the point. It's slick and I mean, it's slick.
Yeah.
I do want to learn more about this, what it sounds like you're saying is the centrality of the origin of these international mandates, though, the universal language that seems to appear in these.
Yeah. Well, I find it curious. I don't have any answers about it. I find it curious. I'm working technology spaces, but I'm more a person who just keeps track of it or notice some of the things that have come up in my work or affect my work or the tools that I use for my work. So I'm curious. I'm as curious as the other person. I noticed that a lot of these ID projects are being funded by the World Bank and the IDB, International Development Bank, and some of those big multinational financial agencies. And I think if you just take a look at who's the big funders behind those groups, you'll see where these mandates are coming from, who's helping to draft the legislation all over the world. You'll also, if you take a look at who gets the contracts for building out these databases or hosting the information or is in charge of doing something with the information, who is it sold to? I think that will, open your eyes to see a race between some European countries and the United States of America, for example. It is very, very intriguing. It's very intriguing to just pull back some of those curtains and look. I haven't looked behind all of them. I am terrified to look. But at the ground level of the regular consumer, just a woman going about her business, I find it to be a little bit upsetting that my DNA is being requested for an ID, which will allow me to drive a car. Do we need to go that far, to drive a car or to cash a check that's written out to me? I think that's a little bit of an overreach that we should pay attention.
They literally want to stick you and make you bleed at the counter if you want that money. Like that's really, I feel like that's where we're headed next. Put your finger on the dot, like shed blood if you want that check pass.
That's right. Hook me up, string me up. And, this COVID situation has also accelerated the arguments. The arguments I've seen that they're morphing into one. It used to be about security or convenience, and now it's about health. We need to capture all this information about people because you need a COVID passport, a health passport, a global health passport. But we're human beings and we can't help but do terrible things to each other. It seems that way sometimes. And so, if you have a disease, it starts with COVID, and then what? Will you be excluded from certain kinds of travel, for example, or accessing certain kinds of healthcare? It's fascinating, especially the healthcare argument in a place like the United States of America, where a lot of people don't have access to healthcare or can't afford healthcare even. So what is that information being used for? There's no real conversation about, no popular conversation about extending healthcare to everyone in this country. So capturing data about people's health status, even those that are outside of this country that may migrate here, what is that information really for? So lots of questions, more questions than answers, I think.
So listen, everybody, particularly who have been here from the beginning of this episode, go back. And if you've watched it, even if you're watching this in a replay, go back to the beginning and catch where Soul Rebel started off with that nonsense about, oh, I don't even know if I have anything to say. I don't even know if I can hold a conversation long enough on this platform. Woe is me. Go back. And then remember when I said right after that, whatever. And then here we are 37 minutes later, smarter. And we ultimately get to see how correct I was, which is ultimately the point of my whole thing here. By the way, Riverman is trying to shout you out for being a Jamaican.
All right.
But as much as Riverman spends time on this channel, I keep noticing that Riverman doesn't have a subscription thing next to Riverman's name. So I'm wondering what that's about. And if that's about, is that about protecting data? Is that the argument you're going to make, that you don't want to click subscribe because it's about data? Otherwise, listen.
Wait,
so I know.
That's a
go
good
ahead.
point.
Go ahead.
I'll say that they already know that you're watching. I think as I've been tracking privacy issues in this space for quite some time, and I always, at the end of the day, because I sometimes get as frightened as you said you were, Jared. At the end of the day, we have to be committed to fighting for our right to privacy. Or whereas our privacies are being violated by these mandates, that we are prepared to fight for the right to be who we are, whatever's in our DNA, whatever's in our DNA, whatever it is in your makeup, that we have to be prepared to fight for the right to be those things and to be respected and not be marginalized. This is I think we're heading into a really open phase of existence where everyone, whatever you are, is out there. And we're not going to be able to, we have to embrace each other and fight for the right to be, true personhood, of in the true sense, meaning of that word. So I just want to say, as frightening as it is, we don't have to sit here and be manipulated or marginalized by all this data capture. We can also organize and fight for the right, whether or not you are a person with, legal status to live in this country, or you are LGBTQ person, or you are of an ethnic group that someone might say shouldn't be a part of a country or something like that. We're going to have to fight for each other and fight for ourselves. So I'll just add that in there.
So in other words, go ahead and click that like and subscribe and join button, Riverman, and stop fronting, because your sister was just telling you so in a very polite and community building way.
Yeah.
Sister Soul Rebel, look, we are going to, we're going to break a little early because we want to make room for Luke Mon Nation, who have this special report on what's going on with, because all these folks that said Biden could be pushed to the left. He's already bombing cats. He's already said, so they're going to cover all that for us. And the latest on the walk back on the $15 minimum wage that we probably not going to get, that I predicted. So we'll see if I'm right, if they, anyway, but I, as has been made plain, as I predicted it would, you have plenty to say, and I greatly appreciate you sharing some of it. And I can't wait till you come back, which I expect that you will now, because it's
I'm really happy. Thank you for inviting me. I'm just so happy to be of a little support to this amazing channel of information. We've been doing this work for a long time, and I have nothing but love and support for this work. And thank you for having me again.
Okay, so I'm getting checked. Okay, check his facts. Riverman can't do membership on YouTube because why? I'm not talking about membership and payment. I'm talking about subscription.
Yeah.
The becoming subscribed to the channel doesn't require payment and doesn't require PayPal or any of that. It just requires you hit that little subscribe button and get notified. That's it. That's it. So I check the facts. Click. Anyway, it's all good. I appreciate. Look, Riverman stays in the comments. I appreciate that. The comments and chats always lively on these things. Soul Rebel, thank you so much again. It's always a pleasure. I really appreciate you. I can't wait to see you next time. Love to you and the family. Okay.
Thank you, brother.
All right, everybody. So again, I was right. I told you she had plenty to say, and it was fronting at the beginning, and I can't wait till she comes back. It's been a long time coming to arrange even just that much. I really appreciate it. As I said, please do like, share, subscribe, join if you can. We're trying to make the best of all of that support, and as evidence of that, right after this, at 1 o'clock Eastern time, Lukman Nation special live edition to catch us up on what's going on with Syria, to catch us up what's going on with the minimum wage nonsense, and probably some other good gems. And then they're going to be back at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time with more Lukman Nation for more gems featuring Cam Howard of Encobra, the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, right? Talking about HR 40 and the reparations movement. And then after that, episode 4 of The Last Dope Intellectual, Dr. Sharice Burden Stelly and special. You just do not want, you never want to, you never should, but this is just, an additionally for me, hyped, excited episode that you really don't want to miss. So if you could catch it live, you might as well, because you're going to be here anyway. So stick around and get all of it live and enjoy all that good stuff. And no, not all of us are based in the East, and we're shortly expanding. We have cats in the South already, with Renegade Culture. We have No Name jumping on board from the West Coast. And we have others that we are, in the mix talking with, some of whom are, Dr. Sharice Burden Stelly is in the Midwest. So, I mean, we're already, as best we can, covering as much of space as we possibly can. And we are already in touch with the diaspora beyond these borders, of course, in Central and South America, in the Caribbean, and on the continent of Africa, in a number of locations throughout the continent. So there's a number of things in the mix, pun intended, that we are trying to build on, that we have not lost sight of. And if anything, I think all that we've done is somewhat jump out there as soon as we could get something going, and we're going to just hit the ground running. So that's why the Remix Morning Show is coming in a few weeks. That's why more shows are coming shortly after that. Anyway, so we're trying to again expand even beyond our own immediate comfort zone in terms of the Black radical tradition or radical blackness, tradition of radical blackness, and expand the discussion within these traditions as well. So that's it. So again, Black Power Media is by all means meant to encompass all the ranges of largely unsanctioned versions of Black Power, and as it's interpreted throughout the diaspora, and today and historically. So anyway, please stick around. Please continue to support. Please, all of the stuff that needs to happen to make these things expand. Please do all of that. And again, let's all run, get a quick snack, a quick beverage, a quick restroom break, whatever it is you need. Get your comfort, get your coffees and teas and waters, good waters, and some vegetables and some fruits or whatever's, and get your comfortable pillows and chairs, because in shortly less than 15 minutes, Luke My Nation is coming with the special live report. And I can't wait. So I'm going to go get myself situated. So that said, as always, as Fred Hampton used to say to you, we say peace if you're willing to fight for it, and we'll catch you in that whirlwind, like blah in them strong, powerful Garveyites. So peace, everybody. Catch you next time here at I Mix What I Like Live. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.